Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Big Vision TV. So I've had a little bit of a break and I am really excited to welcome today's guest. Now, today's guest, as you can see, is Nick James. I first met Nick, not in person, but I saw Nick at an event, must have been about 4 or 5 years ago, an event, it was a ladies event, a damsels event up in Birmingham, I think it was. And I was fairly kind of new in my online business at that time, and I saw this guy on stage talking about software, and I must admit I was a bit like, I'm in the wrong place, what are these guys talking about? And to be honest, that was that. And I then came across Nick earlier this year when I attended his Expert Empires event. And to be quite honest, when I saw Nick on the stage talking, I thought, this is a really different person to the guy that I saw on stage 5 years previously. And I was really intrigued actually to see and hear about what changes have happened, for Nick, how Expert Empires was created, this extraordinary event in London with some, really big names were there, which is why I was, compelled to attend the event. And yeah, so I kind of did a bit of my own investigation, wanted to find out more about Nick, but I thought even better, why not get him on this show today to ask himself. So Nick, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for your time today. I'd love to hear, just from my little introduction there, we'll go into it a little bit more about who you are and what you do a little bit later on, but can you just tell us a little bit about this, what I've seen from this journey of transformation? I don't know if this is just something I've witnessed or if this has been an actual journey of transformation for you.
Yeah, of course. Happy to share. And first of all, thank you so much for having me on. Always a pleasure to share with new audiences, new groups, things like that. So yeah, you know what? I don't disagree with anything you've said, Mel. In that, when you first saw me speak at that event, which by the way I think was longer than 4 or 5 years. I think it was probably more like 6, maybe 7 years. And a lot has changed for me personally, professionally since then. And I think before I go into that, I think you'll see people at different stages of their journey, and we literally are different people. Some people it's every 5 years, 10 years they'll transform, they'll revolutionize themselves or their business. And I think for me, I started out running events 11 years ago now. At first I was just kind of finding my feet and going, well, like, what do I want to stand for, and what style do I want to portray, and what content do I want to teach? And I experimented, and I think probably all we're ever doing, whether you're running events or whether you're running a show on social like you are, or whatever, I think we're only ever just experimenting, trying to find the best version of ourselves and trying to find the best version of our business, our products, our services. And when I look back then, frankly, that was the best I had to offer. I was like, hey, I understand marketing, systems, software, that kind of thing. And so that was my bit at the time. That was what I'd speak about at events. If I was to do an interview like this back then, it would have been a similar theme. In 2015, there was actually a significant shift for me, which was probably a year or so, maybe after you saw me speak, where I was in a business partnership. We went our separate ways, and I had a bit of I was literally starting from scratch. Bear in mind, I'd been in this business partnership for a couple of years. We'd built it to be a multi-7-figure business based on, as I said, systems and processes and marketing, automation and that kind of things, technology. And I remember sitting there like the day after I'd left that business, and I literally sat there in bed with a laptop in front of me going, now what? Like, what's next? I've now got, it was scary, but also at the same time, it was very liberating, because I've now got choice to create whatever the hell I want from scratch, which is quite exciting. And I had the advantage that, of course, I'd been running events, I'd built my business, people knew who I was over a number of years. So it's not like I was starting from scratch, but I could literally create whatever I wanted. And, you know, as I said, I've been running my own events at that point, probably 5-6 years. And I went, you know what, like, I can now create it however I want it. So what do I see as the gaps, or what do I see as the weaknesses in our industry, in our market? And what do I, you know, what's everyone else doing? And what do I want to stand for? And what do I want to move away from? What changes do I think need to be made? And so there was a number of decisions I made. First of all, you know, I made a decision that I wanted whatever service I gave, or product or event I delivered, to be a complete 100% representation of me and my values. And I think, you know, through experimenting over time, I'd got a feel for what that looked like and felt like. And I also had a feel for what it didn't look like and feel like. So, you know, started off this brand new business in 2015. It was very much focused on delivering one-on-one mentorship to clients who wanted to build their own events business, because I'd done that for many years. Because I went, hey, no one else is doing that. I know that back's front and inside out, so I'm not going to try and compete with, you know, the business coaches that kind of just serve everybody. I'm going to focus in on that one thing. And, you know, since then, as you've mentioned, it's evolved, and Expert Empires came about 18 months later as our kind of, again, that's probably our flagship event now, the thing that I'm best known for. But again, Expert Empires was created really out of a desire to disrupt the industry a bit, you know, to move away from the free pitch fest kind of events.
Yes.
You see a lot of. And I'd become frustrated with the industry a bit. I mean, you know, as you know, Mel, I attended my first seminar when I was 12 years of age, with Tony Robbins, which unfortunately is 24 years ago now, so you can do the maths. And you know, I fell in love with the industry back then as a kid, and I grew up in it. I was very lucky. You know, my mum took me through all Tony's trainings as a teenager, and you know, I've worked in this industry my entire life. I've really never done anything else. And I love it, but
sorry, Nick, to interrupt. I remember you sharing that story on stage, actually, and I think that's when my ears pricked up. I kind of think, gosh, he's been going to Tony Robbins events since the age of 12. Wow, that must have had some kind of lasting impact. I think I was in my late 30s before. No, old. I think I was 40 when I went to my first Tony Robbins event, and it was like, wow. And I think to be having gone to a Tony Robbins event since the age of 12, that must have had some kind of impact or shaped you growing up.
Massive. I mean, you know, I do count myself extremely lucky in that respect. You know, I do think you make your own luck, but at the same time, there's not that many 12-year-olds or teenagers that get that opportunity. But I guess my point is that when I created Expert Empires, I went, like, I love this industry, but I don't really like what it's become. Seems to be a lot of hype and a lot of BS and a lot of hard selling going on. And I went, look, I'm going to create something that's not that. So, you know, Expert Empires became, I'd like to think, you know, and you've been to it, I'm sure you could share your experience, but I'd like to think it's become an event that's got a reputation of massive value, lots of content. Look, I'm still running a business. It's still a commercial, you know, what I'm doing is still commercial based. So it has to make profit, but it's not, you know, it's not just about sell. It's like, hey, what value can we create, what community we're building so that people want to come back time and time again. If they choose to become clients of ours in our various programs, great. If they don't, that's cool too. So, you know, that's the kind of, that was the journey, I guess. And that's probably the shift that you noticed in me, I think, from when you first saw me maybe in 2013, 2014 to more recent was, you know, that the priority has become to create something that represents me and my core values rather than something that just makes money.
Yeah. And I think, let's talk about that for a little bit, because I think particularly in this industry where there is, as you say, a lot of crap. And I think also, I think us in the UK, the entrepreneurial industry is a little bit behind the States. And I've attended lots of events in the States, but you know, I must admit, there hadn't been an event in the UK that really made me think, I really want to go to that. It was just like, as you said, I'd been to a few of these pitch fests and I was so turned off. To be quite honest, I'd rather fly to America to go to an event. And when I saw, you know, these names that you were pulling in, just like, okay, let's give this event a go and let's go and find out what this is all about. I think I didn't go to the very first one. I think the very first event you had Gary Vaynerchuk. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah,
That's a really big name to start off with.
Well, yeah, you know, and it was. I often share this story. You know, it was probably perceived by other people in the industry to be a huge risk because, you know, it was, you know, not cheap, as you can imagine, to get Gary to come and speak. And, you know, it's not like I was running these events regularly and had, you know, a huge track record. Even though I had run a lot of events in the past, it was, I suppose, what you might call a bit of a punt. But it felt like the right thing to do. It felt like this is a crossroads for me, personally, professionally, with the business, to go, right, this is what we want to be known for. And, you know, Gary, as you probably know as well, if you follow him, his whole narrative, a large part of that is anti the big sell and anti, you know, selling lots of...
You never see him selling anything, do you?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you go, well, he's, you know, of course he's selling his ideas constantly to build his audience and his following. And, you know, he sells books, and that's how he, you know, I guess, communicates that and gets paid. But really what that audience, what that allows him to do is command rather significant speaking fees. And of course it also proves, it acts as he's his own case study, really. So that when he goes and sells into big corporates, his marketing agency, which is a social media marketing agency, then he goes, look at what we've achieved over here with my personal profile, or, you know, with client personal profiles. So, you know, I think whilst he doesn't directly sell to his audience, he obviously indirectly uses that audience to generate sales, which I quite like that approach. And I suppose as is, not exactly that, but it's not dissimilar to that as well. And that was the reason I chose Gary, was because I went, you know, I like what he represents. I like his values. And funnily enough, I met up with him in New York just a couple of months ago. We had a quick catch up, and, like, you know, it was great for me to share, you know, what's happened for me since. He probably took as much of a risk on me as I did on him, really, in many respects, you know, because he was putting his personal brand alongside our event. And it was cool, you know, to share with him what's happened with Expert Empires and with my business over the last 3 years, since 2.5, 3 years since then, because, yeah, and he was like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I can't believe that's where it started. And I'm so proud. I'm so happy that this is what's happened since. So, yeah, it was really nice. And I think, yeah, it was a relatively big risk, if you like, but, you know, it paid off. And I think sometimes you got to, no one else thought it was a good idea. Like, everyone I asked told me I was off my head. But sometimes you need to listen to advice, and sometimes you just need to follow your own gut instinct and intuition. And I think for me, it was definitely an example of following my gut instinct and intuition. And here we are 2.5, 3 years later, and it's all worked out really well.
Yeah. And so what is your vision for Expert Empires? And, you know, this is called Big Vision TV. I want to hear from my guests that, you know, you switch lanes, you know, changed everything up in 2015. So this is kind of like it's kind of, as you said, like starting all over again. What's your vision now? And, you know, this could be a shorter term vision or a longer term vision. I'd love to know what's your vision for, you know, yourself and Expert Empires.
Yeah, great question. I think, well, I can answer it 2 ways. So, you know, big vision, and this is Big Vision TV. Big vision is to have Expert Empires and other events like it. You know, I do think we've started to diversify and branch out a little bit, but the big vision is for Expert Empires and events like it to be the #1 event for entrepreneurs worldwide. Like, that's the big vision. I suppose shorter term vision, we've got a very clear plan of what we're doing for the next 5 years in our business. So we know where we want to reach in terms of numbers of people in the next 5 years, in terms of revenue in the next 5 years, that kind of thing. I suppose, yeah, there's the big vision, which isn't necessarily measurable. And then you've got the shorter term, maybe the next 3 to 5 years, which is very measurable through things like number of people that have come through our events, revenue, that kind of stuff.
Brilliant. That's great. So I was just kind of just glancing at your bio here, and we've talked about the you starting all over again, but then in your bio here, you've mentioned the word failure a couple of times. First of all, it says Nick dropped, so I'm just reading this here. Nick dropped out of university at the age of 21 and failed spectacularly with his first coaching business, which forced him to take a 16K a year telesales job. So that's one, we talk about failure, because that's the thing in this industry. We don't talk about failures very often. Sometimes people get disheartened because all you see is the success, and you see the 6-figure launches, 7-figure business, these big numbers are branded about. But, I think it can be disheartening for a lot of entrepreneurs who don't see or hear people talk about the failures, the failed launches.
Well, let me share that one in particular. I was probably like a lot of people who are ambitious, the entrepreneurial. Remember, I'd been around the kind of Tony Robbins scene since I was 12. I'd grown up in that space, so I was fairly well educated when it comes to personal development and helping people. Specifically, I'd been through that as a youngster. So the first coaching business was actually I set up as a youth coach. So I would do, the idea was I'll do one-on-one coaching with teenagers that are maybe struggling with confidence issues, with pressure for exams, with anxiety, with a lot of these things. And by the way, there was no question that I was highly skilled. I was more than capable of doing it. The problem was that I didn't know how to run a business. So I didn't know how to generate inquiries. I didn't know how to close sales. I didn't know how to do any of it. So consequently, I managed to get one client, which was actually a referral from my mum. It was somebody it was a client of hers and their daughter was struggling. And so I did some coaching with them. But literally, that was it. So I had one client paying me a couple £100 a month. That was it. So, I had to kind of bite the bullet and go and get a job. And it was the best thing I ever did. And I think often, especially in the kind of business growth, personal development industry, having a job is deemed to be a bad thing. But actually it's the best thing I ever did, because it taught me in that I was in that job for around about 2 years, I think. And in that 2-year period, I learned from observing at close quarters what it took to build a small but powerful business. So, the guy that I went and worked for, his name's Andy Harrington. You probably know of him. So I went and worked for Andy, and he was building at the time his first speaking business. And in the time that I was there, grew it from maybe I think when I joined, there was maybe 4 or 5 employees, to a multi-7-figure business. And so I saw the journey, and so I learned about marketing. I learned about sales. I learned about speaking. It's really where I learned a lot of the basics of now what I do today. So I gave a couple of years to my education, really, by being in and around it every day. So, yes, I'd got a failed business, and I kind of had to, do the unthinkable and go back and get a job. But it was actually the best decision I made, because that job, technically, when I look back, that job moved me much closer to my ultimate vision, and it moved me a lot more quickly than I would have done if I had to work it out on my own using trial and error.
Yeah. And then you talk about failure again, which I think is what you were talked about earlier, when you you started a second business at the age of 24, this time discovered a winning formula before long had a multi-6-figure company. Then you made a huge mistake, which nearly put you out of business and cost you 50 grand of your own personal cash. So this is now a big financial failure.
And again, I said to you before we started recording, I'm an open book, I'll share. So, I'd learned how to be quite good at sales and marketing, and so managed to build a relatively successful business quickly, bringing decent money in. But what I hadn't learned and I hadn't mastered was how to build the infrastructure and how to have really good customer service procedures in place and things like that. So the mistake was, effectively, I'd oversold some programs and then failed to deliver at a high enough level. And so I had a load of dissatisfied customers. And so I knew the right thing to do was hold my hands up, admit I'd made a mistake and refund the money. But I didn't have the money, because also I had no clue about how to run the finances of a company either. So I had to basically, borrow a load of money personally to pay the clients back. So, it was a harsh learning experience. But still, what I'm extremely grateful for, because, look, I mean, this might sound a bit arrogant, but I genuinely believe now we have the best customer experience of any company of our type in the UK. Like, I believe that. Now, whether you believe it or anyone else does is another matter, but I know that we're doing everything we possibly can to deliver the highest level of experience, the highest level of customer service, to serve our clients, get them results. So I think, would I be as committed to that had I not had that learning all those years ago? Probably not. So in effect, it was one of the best things that could happen to me, even though it hurt like hell at the time.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think in every failure or every challenge, there are always huge gifts that help us. That there's always a gift in every challenge. So yeah, I totally see that. And absolutely, and I've recently started working with you and your team, and I can completely confirm that is the case. The customer experience is great, and yeah, so I think actually what you said is quite true. So
it's knowing what one of the things I talk about a lot when you're building a business and being entrepreneurial is building it around the skill sets that you have, that you're world class at. So look, I know that I'm very, very good at sales and marketing. That's what I've built all of my businesses on so far. I am totally committed to creating the best customer experience possible. However, it's not my strength, and I know that, which means I have to bring people into my team that do have that strength, that are world-class in that area. That doesn't mean I don't care. I care deeply. It's just not how my brain works. My brain isn't wired to put processes and systems in place, because that's what it takes. And I'm not a processes and systems person in terms of, like, I'm an ideas person. I'm good at the marketing piece. I'm able to do some of it, but I'm not really world-class at it. So I think whenever you're building your business, whatever stage you are at while you're watching this, listen to this, think, what areas am I absolutely world-class at? And then go all in on those. Observe what the gaps are, where where you're weaker, let's say, and then find ways to plug those gaps as you grow.
And you've mentioned your mum a couple of times in this interview, and your mum's now part of the business as well, isn't she? How's that, making this a family thing? Did you think that you'd be working with your mum?
Yeah. Well, it was about 18 months ago that my mum and her husband Tony joined the company. So and again, there was a number of reasons for that, which I won't go into, but the big one that I'll share from my point of view personally is they're world class at that. Like, when it comes to customer experience, like their company they had of their own before was really, really strong on that. And so for me, the reason it was a perfect fit, other than the fact that we're family, and it's nice to work with family, but it can be challenging at the best of times as well. I'm sure they would agree. But the reason it was a great fit is because the areas that I'm world class at, they're not maybe that strong, and the areas they're world class at, I'm not that strong. So it means that that we can all focus day to day on doing what we're really gifted at. And yeah, like I said, it can cause its challenges, but
so
yeah.
Who's in charge, Nick? Who's in charge?
Well, I'm sure they wouldn't mind me saying that my role is absolutely 100% CEO, run this business, drive it, and they are so damn good at coaching and mentoring and training and supporting people. That is their role. They're world class at it. They let me drive the business, and they deliver at a very, very high level.
I love that, because I've as a mum myself, I have visions that one day that, obviously I'm more than happy to support my kids in whatever passions and ventures they want to do in their lives. But, there's a little part of me think, it would be great to have them work with me one day if they wanted to. But that whole question.
My son's the same. My oldest, he's 10, and he's football obsessed. So,
sounds like I've got one of those.
You ask him what he wants to do. He says he wants to be a professional footballer. And he's, I suppose, at this point in his life, he's at least aware enough to go, and if not, then here's what I'd like to do instead. And he's definitely another me, wants to follow my footsteps. He was talking the other day about what he wanted to have as his first car. And I went, well, where are you going to get the money for that from? And he went, oh, I'll get a good job working for you. I went, oh, will you now? That's nice. So he's definitely, my kids come to my events as well. You know, I'm not suggesting that this is right for everyone, but you know, they do take the odd day out of school every now and then. As I did when I went to all these Tony Robbins events, they take the odd day out of school, they come to my events, they see it, they get in the environment, you know, and they love it, and I love having them there, because it can be quite a lonely existence sometimes when you're, you know, on the road running events and you're away from your family. So it's probably as much for them as it is for me, but yeah. Really good to have them.
No, so Nick, let's talk about this next event that's coming up, and obviously people watch this on a replay, and the November 2019 has been and gone. That there's going to be, let's talk about 2020 as well, that there's going to be some events next year, but let's talk about this up and coming event first. Tell us all about what's happening, Expert Empires, November 2019.
Yeah, of course. So, well, we've got, as always, really exciting lineup of speakers. Again, for those that aren't familiar with our events, Expert Empires is a business event designed to help anyone who's an entrepreneur based on their expertise. So they might be a coach, a consultant, a speaker, a trainer, a mentor, an author, that kind of business. So really, it's a business based upon their skill set, their expertise, them offering information and helping people to, they're service-based businesses that are helping people to, you know, get better results in some area of their lives effectively. And we like to bring over, you've already mentioned, like Gary Vaynerchuk, we had Grant Cardone last year, Chalene Johnson. So we've had some amazing speakers. And this time we have Tom Bilyeu, who was, he was one of the founders of Quest Nutrition, which was he sold $1 billion company.
Wow.
Based on, you know, health and nutrition business. And now he's probably best known for his YouTube and podcast content, which is called Impact Theory. Yeah. So Tom's coming over to share a combination of business and mindset. And that's really, I suppose, Expert Empires is a balance, a combination of business and mindset for sure. We've also got Carrie Green, who's the founder of the Female Entrepreneur Association. So Carrie rarely speaks at events. She's online. She's got an online membership, massive following of female entrepreneurs. And again, she's built that from the ground up and built a very successful business, building that community. So she's going to come and talk about how do you build a community? How do you build a business online? If you maybe you don't want to do what I do. Maybe you don't want to do events. But you can do it virtually online, work from anywhere in the world, that kind of thing. So she's going to come and share how she's done that. Obviously, I'll be there speaking and sharing how we've built Expert Empires and built our companies up as well. We have Rob Moore, the disruptive entrepreneur, who of course has a huge podcast and a massive following here in the UK. So we've got some amazing speakers, as always. And yeah, 21st, 22nd of November at the Hilton, Wembley. It's our little home. We love that venue. It feels like home to us. Nice venue and fairly easy to get to.
Yeah, it's perfect for me to go to as well. I'm just a bit selfish. It's quite close. So so Nick's been really generous and has given me an exclusive discount code, which I will pop a link in. You'll see it in the title of this broadcast. And this link is only going to be available until Friday, so you've only got a couple of days to take action, but the event's only in a couple of weeks' time anyway. So I'm going to the event. And
so let's say what we've done. We've got so the link that Mel's going to post here on this live on this video is exclusive just for your audience. And we've also done a promo code for you as well, which gives people a big discount on the tickets. So basically you get 300 quid off any ticket. We've got 4 different types of ticket. You can go and see what's included. I think the VIPs are sold out anyway, and the access to all areas are or very close to be. But you can go and see what ticket levels there are and what's included and everything. I think you'll find they're very reasonably priced, very affordable, especially when you use Mel's promo code, because that gets you 300 quid off any of those tickets. So yeah, get yourself over there.
And I'd love to say hi if you come to the event. Come and find me, and I'd love to say hello. And it's a great networking opportunity as well. You know, I remember the last event, I went to the one in March, and yeah, met with some people, ended up being a guest on a podcast, and so it's a fabulous networking opportunity as well. So highly recommend it, particularly if you're kind of the mindset a bit like I was a bit of a UK event snob, and thinking I had to go to America for these amazing events to see these amazing speakers. But you know, if you're a UK based entrepreneur, then
so was I. That's why I created Expert Empires, because I was spending loads of time away from my family and loads of money going over to the States for all these events. And I went, you know what? There's nothing like that in the UK.
Exactly.
So maybe I should be the one to create it. That's where it all came from, really.
And I'm so glad you did. And I think there was a big hole in the UK entrepreneur industry. And yeah, and if you are feeling that way, then definitely come and check it out. Highly recommend it. It's a great couple of days, jam-packed full of and you know, there's speakers that you haven't announced or mentioned yet, but I know there's going to be extraordinary content that's going to help in all sorts of areas of your business that I really wasn't expecting at all back in March. You know, things like, you know, Instagram, LinkedIn information and social media stuff. It's like, it was fabulous information. So highly recommend it.
We're full of surprises, is that we keep lots of it a secret, and then we wow you over 2 days with what we've got. And as you mentioned, you know, great opportunity for you to connect with other people that you might be able to partner with and do work with. You know, we like to make it a social occasion, an event. We've got lots of different opportunities for that. We do a big party on the middle night, which always goes down well.
Yeah.
So lots of great stuff happening. Yeah.
Great. And very quickly, I know you've told me that there's more stuff coming next year, isn't there? So you plan to make these really regular events now, don't you?
Yeah, so Expert Empires, this is the third one we've done this year. So next year we intend to ramp it up, do even more events. Some of them will be Expert Empires, others might be slightly different brands, different angles, with different speakers, but we are committed to continue to do this. So there'll be lots happening next year. We've already got an event locked in for March. I forget the exact date. We have got one headline speaker contracted, but we haven't announced it yet. But we'll be continuing to raise the bar, raise the standard with the quality of speakers we bring, and the quality events that we run here in the UK. And eventually, of course, the big vision is to do it worldwide.
Excellent. I'm really excited to see how this all unfolds for you, Nick. So how can we connect with you or find out more about you? Or obviously I've got the link for the event, but yeah, how can we find out more about you, Nick?
Yeah, but probably, loads of different places, but the best way to connect with me is on Facebook. So we've got a free group community called Expert Empires Community, which you can just go and request to join there. Again, you'll find out all about our events, and I'll post content regularly in there as well. You can connect with me personally or through my Facebook page. I'm maxed out on the friends side on the personal profile, but if you go and like the page, again, it's just called Nick James Expert Empires. Search for that, then you'll find me there as well. Because that's Facebook's probably where I hang out most. We use Instagram and LinkedIn, but I don't really manage those platforms myself, whereas Facebook is where I'm probably most prolific.
Brilliant. Okay, I'll post up links to the groups and all of those as well. So yeah, thank you so much for your time today, Nick. It's been really fantastic just learning a bit more about the man behind the events, and look forward to seeing you at the event in a couple of weeks' time. And yeah, thank you so much.
Perfect. Well, as always, thanks for having me on and allowing me to share with your community. And yeah, look forward to seeing you and hopefully a few of your guys at our event in a couple of weeks.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nick. Thanks everyone for watching.